Hello. You know, you have to be careful with certain words in your language that you use. Um, Noticing that a lot of people are using the word authentic and real, and they're trying to sell you that they are authentic and they are real, and they're really not. They're not even close, but they don't want you to know that. They want to fool you. They want to make you think they're authentic. And they'll tell you a few things that might sound authentic, but either they don't really believe it or practice it, and they're basically just saying it because, like a car salesman says, this is the greatest car on the lot, and it's probably the worst. They're manipulating you, and the Matrix does this. The Matrix adopts words that are being used against it and brings it under the fold and uh, uses that word against the people that tried to use it against it and turns the table. And you know, I don't have to prove that I'm authentic or real. I think that's evident, and I don't really care if you think I'm authentic or real. I mean, it's not an insult if you call me authentic or real, uh, and it's not an insult if you say I'm not. Either way, I don't care. Uh, but the people that I'm talking about, they do care. If you say, "Oh, you're not authentic," they'll get really mad. Like, "Oh, how can you say that?" And that's a telltale sign that they're not authentic. You know, so uh, just be aware of that, and and know that you know I've said this plenty of times on my videos that when you're sold on the Matrix or whatever organization that's working on you, be it a car salesman, a teacher, a boss, a mother, a wife. If you're sold on whatever they're trying to sell you, then they don't deal with you anymore. It's you're that sold item in the store that's on the shelf, waiting for somebody to come pick it up. Uh, they don't do anything with that item. They just leave it on the side, and it's out of their mind, out of sight, out of mind. We collected our money on that item, and we're not going to get anything more. And uh, now we have to protect it to make sure it goes to the right hands. But other than that, it's a done deal. And that's what you are. You're a done deal to whatever organization or the Matrix that's trying to sell you on their philosophy, their point of view. And if they can get you to vote their way, then once you say I'm going to vote Republican, or something, you're sold. You're sold, and they don't really care about you. What they're going after is the people that aren't sure. That's why they always talk about when it comes to election time. They talk about the undecided. Uh, they don't talk about the Republicans or the Democrats. They talk about the undecided because they're the deciding factor of the election. You know, uh, Whichever way they go is the way the election goes. So that's where the money is spent. In the swing states. The swing states are where all the advertising dollars go. They don't. Democrats don't really put up a big fight in Florida, and Republicans really don't put up a big fight in New York because they know those states are sold. They're sold one way or the other, and they're not really going to spend much time trying to make them switch sides, and it'd be a waste of money. So, uh, and that's why when I say Elon Musk rigged the election, he didn't have to do it in all 50 states. He just had to concentrate on the swing states And within the swing states, it wasn't the whole state he had to swing. It was only a few counties in the state, in the swing state, that they had to fix the election to make it be a winner for Trump. And that's what they did. So it's not that hard. And we've been rigging elections throughout the world in a mirage of countries that we wanted elections to go a certain way. Remember the purple finger in Iraq when Iraqis voted? They had the purple finger, and that election was still rigged. It didn't matter about the purple finger. Nobody went around and counted purple fingers, and the purple finger didn't tell you which side or who they voted for. It just told you they voted. But it's not like a vote goes in for the Democrat and it's switched out with a Republican. Uh, they don't they don't care about the paper ballots. They don't care about what you do when you go to the polling booth. They just change they just change the end result and to what they want or to what they need to win. So it's not as complicated as you might make it out to be. And uh, and they do it for more than one reason. They do it for more than one reason, and that is they're trying to rig the election, not so Donald Trump can win and stuff like that. They're trying to make you doubt your vote. They don't want you to vote. They want you to stay home. And if you think that the election is rigged, you won't go out and vote. And that's what they want. I mean, look at how much pressure they put on with voter registration, voter ID, and all these attempts to keep you home because you don't have a passport, you don't have a driver's license, so you can't vote. And they make those laws, and they did it in the blacks at the South with the no having to know answer questions about the government or the Constitution that they didn't know because they weren't educated, so they weren't eligible to vote. It's been a history of our history that to squash people from voting, and this rigging of elections is just another attempt in that direction. Uh, what's the defense for it? I don't know. I mean, if they're going to have it all computerized, somebody like Elon Musk or Putin can come in and basically do what he wants. And, we're all in a rush election night. We all want to know before we go to bed who won, and we don't like having to wake up in the morning and hearing we still don't know who won because we're still counting, and that alone makes you feel like it's rigged because they're still counting. They didn't trust the election, like with the Bush Gore election. They didn't trust the election because they were counting, and they counted like 3 times. So all these make the insecurity and unsurety uh, of the election system, and that plays in the hands of the Republicans. And I don't understand actually how the voter ID plays in the hands of the Republicans because a lot of your midwestern or mid country states, those people don't have passports. They don't, so a lot of Republicans aren't going to vote as well as Democrats, but I don't see how that makes them win. I think they just, like I said, they want to stop everybody from voting, and that's their goal. And it's not. It's so one day they can say in the future that there's no longer a vote. You don't get a vote, and nobody's going to protest in the street because most people will say at that time, "Oh, I don't vote anyway. What do I care?" You know, it's like the gun laws. Nobody can have a gun, and when they make that law, most people are going to say, "I don't have one anyway. What's the big deal?" And that's because they conditioned you, they trained you not to buy a gun. Uh, they've made laws to make it virtually impossible for you to own a gun or hold a gun. So when they actually get rid of the gun law, then you'll just be like, it's a non-event, and that's the conditioning, and that's what the Matrix. Now that's what the government does to you. They condition you. You know, they're trying to condition you that pedophilia is okay because they're showing you every day that this one's doing it, this one's doing it, this one's doing it, and eventually you're gonna be like, well, everybody does it, so it's okay. It's like pot. Pot was illegal and it was very bad. It was very frowned upon, and people looked down on you for smoking pot, and now everybody does it, and it's no longer looked down on. Now you look down on if you don't do it. What's wrong with you? Why don't you smoke pot? Why don't you eat a gummy? All those things, and I think the people that smoke pot and eat gummies, they have something wrong with them. It's very not a good thing. I don't see it as a positive. And And the funny thing is, when I did see it as a positive, I was doing it myself, and but by doing it myself for many years, I found the negative in it. I found that it wasn't a positive thing in my life, and I needed to get rid of it, and uh, and I did, and I got rid of it many years ago. My last joint was 2012, so it's been a while. And believe me, I used to smoke $200 a week, so and that was really not that much. And back then, $200 was a lot more than what you get today for $200. So you know, uh, it's all conditioning, and I have a video out there about conditioning and how the government and the Matrix conditions you to believe certain things, and the government and the Matrix has uh, plenty of patience. They'll work on you for years and years and years until they get what they want. You know, uh, right now these flock cameras are a big thing, and I think there should be a war on flock cameras. I think people with all these, a lot of people out there have paint guns, and I would start using those paint guns on the flock cameras, and take out those cameras. You won't hurt anybody. You'll just hurt the flock camera, and make them repair them or change them or whatever. But it'll cost them. And I think if we do it on a grand scale, they'll stop using them altogether because it's a total violation of privacy, and you can't trust the police. You know, uh, the Germans killed people; they were the police. Uh, in so many countries where uh, the police were in charge, many people died at the hands of the government, and this is no different. This is a lead up to that. When they think they have total control over society, they're not going to be nice about it. They're going to be very mean. They're going to be very evil, and they are already. They're just they're just hiding their evilness. They're hiding that what they're doing with those cameras. They're hiding what they're doing with that information. And when they start revealing what they're doing with it, you're not going to be happy. It's like the Ring camera. The Ring camera went on everybody's house, and then all of a sudden we saw the negative to the Ring camera, that it was on everybody's house. And that's how it works. It's a slow process. It's the frog in the water. The frog sits in the warm water until it starts to boil, and then he dies. And the flock cameras are just the beginning of that. And they need to go. Uh, and any cop that would fight for a flock camera, he needs to go to. He needs to be fired. Because if he doesn't care about protecting our rights, then why is he a cop? That's his job. So, it's not his job to protect his right to violate our rights. And if he wants to do that, then he can do that from the sidelines. And I say, get your paintball, get your paintball guns out, and happy hunting. And uh, and if you shoot up um, the solar panels, it won't work as well either. So you don't actually have to hit the camera. You can hit the solar panels, and it'll work just as well. And have fun. Happy hunting.